Hello! In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an add-on called TellMeWhen. This is an add-on that will give you notifications about buffs and debuffs and cooldowns and things like that. So we're going to go over the basics of how to set it up and start using it. So you may be looking around if you're looking at different add-on videos or guides and stuff like that, and you'll see people talking about an add-on called Weak Auras or Weak Auras 2. That's an add-on, very popular. It does something similar to this one. I just think that TellMeWhen is a lot easier to set up. Weak Auras can be kind of complicated, but that's sort of nullified by the fact that you can just copy-paste stuff that people have already created, which works well to an extent, but you don't get to individually kind of customize the stuff that you like unless you really dive in and learn how to do weak auras. So TellMeWhen does similar stuff, but isn't nearly as complicated as weak auras. So let's jump in and we're going to take a look at a couple of different things that TellMeWhen can do for us. So when you activate TellMeWhen, you're going to see this little window up here that's telling you TellMeWhen is in configuration mode. Uh, icons will not be functional, blah, 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 all this stuff. Basically, this just means that right now we're configuring the add-on. If we exit the configuration mode, you'll see that stuff goes away. If we want to pull it back up, we type in our chat, we do /TMW, TellMeWhen, and that's going to pop it back up. So when you first start, you're going to see these little grayed out icons somewhere on your screen. This is where you can start setting up your TellMeWhen notifications. So when these are here, you can left click to drag them around, reposition them wherever you want. You can right click for icons. So we're going to do that. We'll right click and this will pop up our menu. Now this menu is for this particular set of bars here. We got a couple of tabs down here. Icon, this is going to determine this icon that we clicked on. If you look, we're in group 1, icon 1. If we right click on 2, it's going to change to group 1, icon 2, and so on all the way through the 4th icon. So icon is the menu for this particular square that we've clicked on. Group is the menu for this whole group of 4 icons here. And then general is just your general settings for the application. We're not going to get into this too much, so don't worry about that. When we go into group, we can look at a couple different options here. So first off, our display method is going to show us icon, bar, or vertical bar. Right now we're on icon, so it's only going to show the icon for the spell that we are setting up. If we click on bar, it shows the icon, and then it has a bar next to it. Vertical bar sets the icon up with a bar over top of it. So you can use whatever configuration you think looks good. I like icons for letting me know when something is off cooldown because it'll pop up and it'll show the little symbol for the spell right there. And I like bars for buffs and debuffs because it'll count down or up depending on what's going on and let you know when that buff is going to expire or when that debuff is going to come off of your target. The vertical bars I just think are a little bit weird, but that's a personal preference thing. So we're going to stick with icon for right now. You could set it to only show in combat. You can set it to only show if your current specialization can do this particular role. So I could set it where it doesn't show up if my role can be tank, which I can right now because I'm blood. Obviously I want it to show up, so we'll unclick that. You could set it up based on your specialization, so I could turn off blood and it'll tell me, hey, we can't see this because you've got it toggled off, so we'll toggle it back on there. You can change your dimensions, so you can make multiple rows or multiple columns. So you can make like a tall set of icons, or you can make a wide set of icons, whatever you like there. So we're going to keep to our 4 right now. There are different bar textures you can pick from. And then after that, the rest of the stuff basically just has to do with the icon layout and spacing and the appearance of the icon itself. And that you can mess with on your own time, toggle it, however you like. We want to get into how do we set this up. So one of the things we can do in here is we can go in our group and we can rename our group, and we're going to name this Our Buffs, or we could change it to My Buffs. Alright, so now this is going to be called Group My Buffs, and then when we go into Icon, we right click, we're on Group My Buffs Icon 1. So that'll help us keep track of which bars are which. Now once you're in here, we're going to set up this one icon here. We want to look at our buffs. So we've got, a couple of buffs here that we can use. So we'll go into Icon Type. This is where you can choose the type of spell or icon or ability that you want to track. So in this case, we'd be looking at spell cooldowns, or we could look at buffs or debuffs. We've got other stuff down here, all kinds of stuff. So you pick the one that's appropriate. So we can go buff, debuff. Then we need to track what that's going to be. So we click here and we type whatever it is we want to track. So in our case, we're going to look at our buffs, and let's say we want to check Icebound Fortitude. So we'll start typing Icebound, and we can see Icebound Fortitude here, and we could just left click that. And under who to watch, we want to make sure it says player, because we're watching ourselves to see if we have the buff. We want to make sure buff is checked. And then there are some other options we could put here about, only show me this buff if it was cast by myself, all that kind of stuff. Other things that we can customize here, a lot of these have to do with your appearances and things like that. So once we're done, we can hit OK, and you're going to see we've got the buff here. Now, when we exit the configuration mode for TellMeWhen, this is going to go away. Right? So it doesn't show. So we know right now we do not have the Icebound Fortitude buff. But we can cast it, and now it shows us, yes, we do have the Icebound Fortitude buff. Okay? So that's if you're using it in icon mode. If we go back into TellMeWhen with /TMW, we can right click on this. We can go to our groups, and let's say we change this to our bars, right? So now we have bars in here. We're going to right click our next icon. We're going to change that to buff as well. This time we're going to track our dancing rune weapon. Okay, this is a buff, so everything else is good to go. We're going to hit OK. We're going to exit, and now we don't have any buffs, but if we hit our dancing rune weapon, we got to be next to a target here. Okay, you can see it's going to show we have the buff, and it's going to count down the amount of time we have left. That add-on needs to go away. Alright, so it'll count down on the bar the amount of time that we have left. So that's how you can track what buffs you have. Now the cool thing about this is this will work, if we go back into TellMeWhen, this will work on your ability procs as well. So let's say we want to go in and we're going to go ahead and flip these back to icon. If we want to get rid of this, we can just click on the icon and hit reset, and that's going to get rid of everything there. So then we can start here, and if we go into our spell book, let's say that we want to check our Crimson Scourge. So your auto attacks on targets infected with your blood plague have a chance to make your next death and decay, cost no runes, and reset its cooldown. So we can go in and we could say, well, we want to find out if we have a buff, and we want to check our Crimson Scourge. There we go, right there at the top. Player buff. Okay. We'll exit, and so now if we want to, we can go up here, we can use our Blood Plague, and we can go ahead, and now there it is. We have Crimson Scourge, that pops up. Obviously, we have a graphic created by Blizzard as well, but sometimes some of your procs and things don't have a graphic associated with them. Like right here, we have Unholy Strength. So that's another one we could set up. We can go into TellMeWhen. It's not going to activate in combat. That's one of the abilities you can change under General. So if we go to General, we can do Allow Config in Combat, and we're good there. Alright, so if we go to this one, we can do Buff. We can go to Unholy Strength. So this one doesn't have a cool graphic for us. Hit OK. And now this should show us when we have our Unholy Strength. So let's go ahead and check that out. Now we're not going to get any of our buffs, I guess. There we go. We got Crimson Scourge. And there's Unholy Strength. So that's a good way for you to check on some of those buffs that you have that don't necessarily come with icons there. Now, if we want to set up... go back into TellMeWhen. If we want to set up a debuff... So let's say in this one, we want to track our Blood Plague effect on our target. We can go in, buff, debuff. We're going to track our Blood Plague. And make sure that's what it's called. Yes, we're going to track our Blood Plague right here. We're going to change this. We're going to delete this out. And we want to select Target. And we're looking for a debuff. Okay, we can also put for the debuffs only cast by me. That way, in case someone else cast a Blood Plague and for some reason we could see it, it won't show up and we'll know, hey, it still needs ours. And then we hit OK, exit config mode, and then when we go to a target and we cast our Blood Plague, we're going to see that up here. Now, obviously, as an icon, and if we click off, you can see that goes away. As an icon, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's the kind of thing that we would like to have as like a bar instead. So now we can see, okay, we've got our Blood Plague on this target. It's got 22 seconds left. We've got this amount of time left for our Unholy Scourge. All these sorts of things. And obviously you don't want to set them up in a huge bar that goes across the center of your screen, but we're just, doing it this way for the purposes of showing off how to use the add-on. Alright, so if we get back in there, the other thing we can do is a cooldown. So we can go in, we could do spell cooldown, and we can pick, let's say we pick our Vampiric Blood this time. Vampiric Blood, right there. Alright. And what this is going to do is we go into opacity and color. When the spell is ready and usable, it's going to have 100% opacity, meaning it's going to show. When it's not ready, it's going to go away. So in this case, we have this here. It's telling us, hey, you can use Vampiric Blood. And then when we use Vampiric Blood, it goes away. And when our cooldown is over with, it will pop back up and show us that, hey, you can use that again. So obviously the way that you use TellMeWhen is going to depend on your class, what you in particular want to look for. Sometimes you don't care how long your Blood Plague is on the target because that's part of your core rotation. You're paying attention to it anyway. Sometimes you just want a big button right here that says, hey, your big defensive cooldown is off cooldown, so you can use it whenever you need to, or hey, you're missing this buff. So you can get into TellMeWhen and you can really do all kinds of stuff with it and with the menus here. But that covers the ways you're probably going to want to use it the most. So we've got these big old bars here. We can move these around, switch these back to icons, whatever we want to do there. And then within the icons, we can also, scale them down so they're not so big. If you want to, after this, if you want to make a new group, you can basically not left click, sorry, you can right click and move, and you can just do split into new group to bring a particular icon down. That'll get you a new group, and then you could just start working with this one, group 2, and creating that one. So you may want to have like 3 different groups, one for your cooldowns, one for your buffs, one for your debuffs on your target. But you can see this is it's fairly straightforward. It's fairly easy to use. Between the different checkboxes and things that you have, it's a lot easier to set this kind of stuff up than it is to necessarily set up like weak auras or something. But this is a good thing to use, especially if you're starting out and you're learning and you keep forgetting to use an ability during a fight. This is a great way because you can just drag that item like right next to your character. And now it's right there floating, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to use that ability. So this is a great add-on for that kind of stuff, and I hope this video has helped you figure out how to use it. And if you like this add-on, or you have a similar one that you'd recommend, aside from weak auras, which we already talked about, let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching this video.